Life is a complex and often perplexing journey, filled with moments of joy, sorrow, and existential reflection. One of the most profound aspects of the human experience is the awareness that our time on Earth is finite. This knowledge shapes how we live, how we think, and how we find meaning in our actions. In exploring this paradox, we begin to understand that both life and death are intertwined in a way that influences every moment of our existence. Arguably, one of the greatest sources of fear, sorrow, and existential conflict is our self-awareness and the realization of our mortality. The fact that we can live a life that feels so real, so significant, and so incredible that we're compelled to wish for it to last forever. The fact that we can speculate on and grasp the concept of the infinite, yet are bound to live with the awareness that we are finite, and everything we do and care about is subject to the limitations of our brief lives. At some point, everything will fade into nothingness. As humans, this is our curse. We are the intersection between the infinite and the finite, capable of contemplating and longing for eternity, yet bound to the impermanence of our decaying bodies. But perhaps, in some strange and paradoxical way, this is also our gift. Currently, we cannot control the biology of our human form. We cannot control the fact that we live in a carbon-based body destined to decay. But we can control, at least to some degree, how we view and think about things from within it. And so, we can shape how we approach the idea of our death, rationalizing it in a way that eases some of its torment and allows us to make the most of our time before it arrives. To explore this idea, think back to a video game, board game, or sport you've played before. What was the driving force behind playing that game? You likely enjoyed the game for its own sake, but ultimately, you were playing towards an end goal. You were playing with the knowledge that the game would come to a conclusion. And perhaps, in a way, you only played because you knew there was an endpoint. The human mind seems to require an endpoint to find meaning and motivation in what we do. What would a game be without an end? Would we even bother playing? What would a story be without a conclusion? Everything we create and do in life, whether intentional or not, has an endpoint. Death is life's endpoint. It is our motivation to play the game of life and to build our narrative within it. Without it, we wouldn't care to leave legacies through our careers, passions, and families. We wouldn't seek to make a positive impact on the world around us. We wouldn't be inspired to create beautiful art, develop groundbreaking technologies, or provoke new ways of thinking. And we wouldn't strive to make the most of life and find joy in its simplest pleasures. To live with the awareness and anxiety of our inevitable death is undoubtedly the curse of humanity. But paradoxically, it is also our blessing in disguise. Perhaps our brains cannot fathom meaningful existence without an endpoint, and because our experience of life is subjective and fleeting, we are able to find profound value and meaning within it. Ironically, death is the reason we cherish life so deeply. And it is because we cherish life so much that we fear death with such intensity. Together, life and death form a feedback loop, creating the uniquely expressive human experience of reality. This is not to say that we should be fearless of death and eagerly await its arrival. I would be lying if I didn't admit that I too yearn to live on eternally with full self-awareness. But as long as humans remain humans, living with the constant anticipation of an approaching endpoint, I merely suggest that we do our best to understand and embrace the practical purpose and value of death within life itself. They say that it's not the destination that matters, but the journey. And that is certainly true. But I would argue that a journey needs some form of destination for it to even be considered a journey in the first place. In the end, it is the awareness of our mortality that adds weight to our every action. The finite nature of life doesn't diminish its beauty or significance, but rather enhances it. By understanding and accepting the inevitability of death, we learn to live more fully, appreciating the present moment, and striving to make the most of our time. In this delicate balance between life and death, we find meaning, purpose, and the drive to make our lives matter.